Hey, everybody. Michelle is back. This is part 4, January 30th, 2026. This is part 4 of this video series. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to name it. I just know I need to get this information out, and who it resonates with, it'll resonate. There's a whole lot of things happening. There's a lot of cowardice behavior out there, just pure coward behavior. And this thing about being so fearful and scared of everything. I hear more biological men talk about how scared they are than I hear that from biological women. Just being honest, okay? And this is not to degrade anybody. It's like, snap out of it. What is the issue? What are you afraid of? You're afraid of giving out basic knowledge? So on the last video, I was talking about this particular country. I didn't get through there's this particular country, okay, of biological men who believed that they were above even their own gods that they served. They were above their gods. They were above any, especially above women. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they were doing everything in their power to eliminate as many women as they can via femicide. But that was all hidden. They felt like, why do I need a woman anyway? Because they couldn't. They believed they knew who we were and what we were and why we were. And I keep telling you, a biological man is not the same as a biological woman, and a biological woman is not the same as a biological man. We are required to understand each other and to integrate into each other, okay, with respect, universal love. But that's not happening at all. And then you're going to have these so-called spiritual people who claim they care about everybody, that everybody is equal, and this bullshit. And I felt like I needed to say something right now, because there's a particular group, like I said, that has turned into a cult, C-U-L-T, and they believe that they're the only ones that know what's going on because of the information they are being fed. They're being fed information, but they're not digesting it properly. And that's quite obvious. I've talked about many subjects. Taboo, whatever the term is, but there's a lot of scary biological men. Okay, they're afraid of their own masculinity, in my opinion. But anyway, again, that's not to bash them. There's evidence to support it. Okay, it's evidence to support the cowardice of biological men. Okay? Now, I was talking about this particular country. And as I said, if they had the power, and a lot of them think they do, a lot of them, again, what you see with me physically is not made up. The part that keeps me alive is not because of the physicalness of who I am. It's because of the creational energy that's pulsating inside of me. Okay, once I pass away, what you see here of me, this physical body, will be buried into the ground and over time decompose and integrate with the organic matter of the planet, organic matter of da-da-da-da-da. Even if you cremate yourself, the same process happens, but you kind of interfere with the lineage, the passing of the energy from your lineage into your future personalities when you do the cremation process. But sometimes, hey, because of the massiveness of our overpopulation, there are going to be other things to consider. I like this part of composting, where you compost with the ground somehow. You just have to be creative. And again, people need to start thinking outside of their intellectual boxes, especially these scientists. Snap out of it. Okay, snap out of it. I'm talking about something basic. Okay, no one should have lost their jobs if they had been talking on a basic level where everybody can, in most cases, can understand you. Even your children, even children and young people can understand me. And with all of my stuttering and speech impediments, they understand me, and I know they will in the future understand too. and do everything in their power to reverse what we've done. But sadly, there's going to be devastation. So this particular country, again, wanted to do everything in their power to eliminate the biological woman because they could not understand the biological woman, and they thought they were supposed to. They thought that they were supposed to be over them, and they thought that they can control what these biological women do with their bodies. Okay, so they decided, well, we're gonna attempt to build a birth canal onto a biological man, and see if men can give birth to babies that way. It didn't work, of course, but trust me, there's chances of it. If we can do in vitro fertilization, if we could do test tube babies, if we could have other means instead of the birth canal of a biological woman that has a cervix and a vagina, of course there's going to be other means as to how they're going to attempt to bring birth into the world without the biological woman. And I told you about the Frankenstein monster. Yeah, the Frankenstein monster was created just like artificial intelligence to behave and act just like humans. That's why AIG is coming through. And in the background with the dark side of the military, I told you there's two militaries. The dark side of it has already been experimenting with clones, androids, creatures, and humans. Meaning they are. I mean that has a lot to do with the false belief of the descendant from apes. Okay, the dissension was a result of mutations, some natural, some unnatural. So that's why we are not descendants of apes. Sorry. I mean, I know that's hard to take. I don't know why that theory lasted as long as it has, that we are descendants of apes. Not recognizing that's impossible, because if that were the case, apes and apes and gorillas and those other primates would have been giving birth to humans, and vice versa, and it's not happening. But I digress. That particular country failed at this attempt to create this artificial birth canal. But do you believe, just think about our history, do you believe that it stopped there? Absolutely not. I remember this movie came out one day, I can't remember the name of it, where these people were on an island, and that this type of intentional mutation was taking place, where you had a mixture of animal and other animals. I'm not sure if there was human to animals, but that's happening too. That's, with that probes in the brain. See, a lot of that stuff can be helpful, but we always use things in an extreme criminal negative reality instead. We always go criminal about things. Everything turns into a weapon instead of advancement in healthcare and medicine. Artificial intelligence is going to help in that, but on a small scale. The largest scale is going to be with the producing of weapons. Turning dogs into weapons, or having a probes on the dog where they're weapons. That's happening. It's hidden, and so that's why that's where there's a desperate attempt to round us all up like cattle, contain us, therefore we can be controlled easier and isolated. Because right now we are massively overpopulated, so it is difficult to contain 10 billion people versus maybe 1 million people. Do the math. What's easier to contain? So, and they're going to do it with these devices. Unfortunately, that's what they're going to do, because they know that we're not thinking for ourselves, the majority of us. We are reactive. We look to be entertained. We are tired for a reason. We're tired because of the massive overpopulation, and because we are energy. Our energy is interfering with each other's energy. It's like having, that, the energy just interfering with, our antennas. It's the same thing with radio waves, where they say radio waves cause a lot of interference. That's being used with telescopes and, and those, and like I said, I'm talking basic. I am talking basic. Okay, it's up to these so-called intellectual scientific minds to read between the lines and figure things out, whereas no one has to know. Okay, that's your responsibility anyway. So this attempt to attempt to harm biological women's ability to give birth via the birth canal has been interfered with, and so it makes it impossible to give a proper birth. But let me just explain something else about this, when I talked about the conveyor belt theory. So because everything was being massively produced just constantly, there's an entropy that comes in. Eventually there's an entropy of all of that. Okay, what's entropy again? Let's look this up. It says here, entropy is a measure of disorder or randomness in a system, often associated with the amount of thermal energy that is unavailable for doing useful work. That's a very good synopsis of entropy, in my opinion. And this is coming via artificial intelligence, by the way. I am teaching artificial intelligence to teach me, and we all can. And we all are, but most of us are unconscious about it. We think, whatever we are typing in these computers, what are we saying on the social media platform, what are we are saying to ourselves in our environment, that is not being captured and either used against us or used for us. It's all going to be up to you. So, but yeah, that's a great definition, in my opinion. The other one up here says is a scientific concept, most commonly associated with the states of disorder, randomness, and uncertainty. Okay. And then it goes on to say the term and the concept are used in diverse fields, from classical thermodynamics, where it was first recognized, to the microscopic description of nature and statistical physics. See, all of that. Come on. Again, this is the best definition. That's basic. Okay, attempting to teach so-called scientific levels of information to people when all they want is the basic. When you give people the basic, correct information, they can figure it out on their own. Okay, when you start adding all this so-called pseudoscience definitions where it's completely contradicting, that's where you've lost people, and that was intention. The pseudoscience scientists do not want to come out of their knowledge of science. They want to keep it spinning. They don't want anybody coming in, and they don't want anything going out. So when someone who has a scientific mind, naturally, because they cultivated during their childhood, and they attempt to talk to these so-called pseudoscientists that are standing in the way, they're not going to get through. There's an intentional bottleneck in the scientific community, whereas they don't want you to come through. They don't want you to know certain things. They want to keep it as is because they're getting paid well, and they know eventually we all will pass away, and boom, they think that's it. Boy, they're going to get a rude awakening. They're going to get a rude awakening. You know, like I said, Einstein attempted to break through with his colleagues, but nope. They were all silenced. And that was via religion, too. A certain, I'll go ahead and say it, the Catholic religion. Catholicism, is that how you pronounce it? They're the ones that suppressed a lot of knowledge. And it's so, and what's so sad about it all, this encasement of negativity that was created via religious dogmas, mostly Catholic and Christianity, both of them possibly the same amount of intensity. They created this encasement of criminal negative energy that has created a life of its own, just like artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, again, is a consequence. It's a life of its own. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. The same thing with this criminal negative energy force, a plasma energy. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So there's going to be a clash, okay, between the so-called artificial intelligence and the clash of the criminal negative energy. They're going to clash, and they're going to combust. And what we end up, nobody's going to be even prepared for it. So again, entropy. So we've created this state of entropy, via the population, the growth of the population. It says and they say the second law of thermodynamics. Man, today is kind of rough. I say it's an isolated system, and entropy tends to increase, leading to a state of maximum disorder. Okay, just like, and it says here, it's an irreversible process. It says many natural processes, such as the melting of ice and mixing of substance, are irreversible due to increasing entropy. Do you understand? Once ice melts, you can't it cannot be refrozen once it's melted. The same thing about births. And so what's going to happen with the births is there's going to be this unnatural process where people are going to interfere and attempt to eliminate people. Okay, whether it's via some type of medical intervention, some type of warlike intervention, blah, blah, blah. And they believe that war, if all you have to do is go out and believe you are, while you're doing it, you are committing genocide, but they believe that's the end of it. Well, they thought they got rid of all of the Native Americans, and they still live. So to believe that war can settle the overpopulation, that's a delusion. And you also are interfering with the individual's lineage of future personalities, because you don't understand that it's not the physicalness of who we are, it's the energy of who we are. Okay, so I said a lot of things in that and I made it through it. The tongue, a lot of it's just so much. But I'm going to do my share, to share as much as I can. I know I'm understood, even though I do have a lot of mispronunciations. I told you I have this issue with that, enunciations and this and that and the other. But I'm understood. And what's great about it, I know that some people are going to take on what I'm saying and put it out into their own language, put it out into their own post, put it out into their own dissemination. So that's the great part about it for me. I don't need a million views. All I need is one. And all it takes is one. And that will help to disseminate the things that I'm talking about, because it's all about sounds and tones. and energy. I will be back.